Resident Evil is one of my favorite video game franchises of all time. Capcom, over its 30-year history, has built this series' reputation up so high to meet its horror, action, and puzzle desires from fans worldwide. And Resident Evil Requiem is the newest installment in this iconic franchise, bringing back its most iconic character, locations, and introducing a brand new character to the mix in what ultimately becomes a true celebration and great mix of what Resident Evil is. This is my review after beating the game and what you should expect jumping back into Raccoon City. Welcome to Play Your Way, Johnnymmer here, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing Resident Evil Requiem, one of my most anticipated games of 2026 easily. If y'all love video games, this is the place to be. We love gaming, and having this platform to talk about games is truly a blessing. We want to share that love with all of you, regardless of the genres and platforms you play. And this is all made possible by you, the viewers. We appreciate all the love and support, and we ask if you haven't already, please subscribe, leave a like, and go ahead and comment on what your thoughts on Resident Evil Requiem are. If you want to stay more up to date, follow us on our socials, including Instagram, X, and TikTok, as well as go check out our weekly podcast where we talk even more about our time playing Resident Evil 9. All the links are in the description, but let's go ahead and get started with this review. And the first thing that I want to talk about is just the quality from a technical standpoint. The visuals, the audio are just breathtaking. I'm sure as soon as you jump into this franchise, you realize, oh man, the RE engine is just cooking on all cylinders. Man, I love this game's atmosphere and just the vibe that this game brings, and a lot of that is due to the visuals. Like when you're walking through hallways, when you're looking at the landscape, looking at the environments around you, it is just so breathtaking. The reflections, the details, the textures, all of that, the lighting is so great, and it really does make for a just chilling but awe-inspiring experience throughout the whole game. There are so many times when you're just like in a cave, or you're looking down a hallway and you just see like lights, or you just see a character, the animations just walking, and it's all so polished and so clean, and I just can't get enough of it. And this factor really does carry a big element of the game, because I mean, if we just look at horror games in general, one of the biggest factors that play into what makes a great horror game is the atmosphere, is the audio design. It really makes you feel immersed, and that is like one of the biggest things about survival horror games, is you want to feel immersed. Immersion is everything, and this game does that amazingly. Now I will say it does it so much better in the first person, but that's not to say that the third person does it bad. Third person is still great. It's just that Resident Evil first person, whether you prefer the first or third person of Resident Evil, you know, Resident Evil 7, 8 versus the other ones, I don't think anybody would doubt the fact that first person makes it so much more scary. And I think that is what is so great about this game, is you get both. And when you are in first person, man, it is terrifying. And that is one of my biggest positives about this game, is horror really returns in this game. There are times when you are genuinely going to be terrified. There are moments where you're playing as Grace, you're walking down dark hallways, and you just have some crazy, and I mean absolutely wild monsters chasing you through the hallways, breaking down walls, breaking down doors, moving objects in which you then have to interact with. They just do an amazing job. The way I would compare it is if you had Mr. X from Resident Evil 2 or Nemesis from Resident Evil 3, but let's just put in like 8 other monsters in there and just have them chasing you throughout the whole game. That is what playing as Grace feels like in this game, and it is terrifying, but it is awesome. Going back to the third person, they nailed it. What you want out of the big third person action segments is awesome set pieces, great use of combat, fun dialogue. Leon comes with that plenty, and they really just do a good job. I think one of the biggest compliments I can give to this game is they blend and mix the first person and the third person so well in the game that you really just get the best of both worlds. And I think that is what personally they should continue to do. That's at least what I would want them to continue to do, because I really enjoyed the Grace's segments in the first half. I think the first half, when it comes to Grace's segments, might be some of my favorite pieces of the whole game. I think when we look at the level design, it's really, really great, as you would expect coming from a Resident Evil game, especially when it taps into that Metroidvania style format, where you have to go to the left side to realize you need something that you'll have to find on the right side, in which you find something on the right side that'll unlock the middle, and you'll get a piece where you can go back to the left and then back to the right. And they just do this weird, awesome thing where, yes, it does feel like you're backtracking sometimes, but it feels like you're backtracking for purpose, where there are some games it just feels like you're backtracking to backtrack, whereas you find something and you're like, oh, now I can do this on the other side. And when you go to the other, on your way to the other side, things happen, like a big monster appears or some cutscene happens, and they just do a really, really great job. So the level design is amazing. There is one section of this game, without spoiling too much, towards the second half of the game, there is one section that is more of an open segment of the game, where I personally felt the level design, or just, I don't know, maybe it was just the pacing of it just felt a little bit off, and there was definitely a moment where I was like, oh man, I wish this segment was changed a little bit, or was a little bit different. But even then, in those segments where I do feel like it was a little bit weaker, there's still so much fun to be had, especially because there is those fun, terrifying, and action sequences. You know, you get that horror segment, boom, 30 minutes of just, or maybe close to an hour of just terrifying moments. Then you take a break, you get like 30 minutes of just absolutely awesome action pieces, and they just do a really, really good job of breaking it down and mixing it and blending it, and for all Resident Evil fans to really enjoy. And I think that is one thing that I will give this whole game compliments. Outside of that one little segment, I do think the pacing, especially in the first half, is really, really good. I think the pacing in honestly, the first half of this game, I might go ahead and just say is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece, because that first half was excellent. I absolutely loved everything. Ultimately, like I just said, there is some pacing issues towards the second half, but other than that, this is a really entertaining story. And I think the word entertaining is a good word to use here, because, you know, you're not going to get the most emotionally heavy story when it comes to Resident Evil. You're not going to find the most complex, layered story when it comes to Resident Evil. You're going to find a story that has some iconic characters, some awesome one-liners, thanks to Leon, and you're going to get a little bit weird towards the second half. And that is exactly what this game does, but I do feel like they did take it in a direction, especially with Leon, where it definitely did feel like you got a little bit emotionally attached to some of these characters, and you were actually invested in the conflict that they were trying to solve. I think the antagonists in this game do play a really good part. I really like them. I wish towards the very, very end of the game, they did a couple different changes in terms of the story, just to make the payoff feel a little bit better. But overall, I think this story is really, really fun. They open up with some really great cutscenes, kind of giving you backstory and just letting you know who Grace really is. And there are moments in this game, and this honestly goes for my whole review, there are moments in this game that are just so memorable and so amazing. This game has so many highs, it's unbelievable. Whether it is these insane set pieces that you are going to be playing through as Leon, or whether it is these really just horrid, like mind-blowing scenes that you get to experience as Grace. There are so many moments that are so memorable, and I think Grace honestly does a great job. I think her voice actress is really, really great. And there is one scene specifically at the beginning of the game, which we've seen in trailers, so I'm going to go ahead and say it, where you basically see how her mom died. That whole scene, I think, was really, really well done. The tension and the build up to all of it, and then just the performance and execution of when it happened, I think was just really, really great. And so I do think this story is very entertaining. I love getting all of the kind of callbacks that you get, and that's why I did say at the beginning of this video, this game really is a celebration of Resident Evil. There are so many Easter eggs, references, callbacks, and I really enjoyed all of them. I do feel like at times it definitely does feel like a bit of fan service, like, we're just going to throw this in here because we know everyone will get a fun reaction out of it, but it didn't really add much to the game. And there are definitely moments, especially when it comes to boss fights, that I do feel like it was more fan service than it like truly drove the game forward. But As somebody who loves Resident Evil and sometimes loves fan service, I did find those moments enjoyable to the very least. And that's something I will say about the whole game, is there are weak points and there are things that I would change or I would critique, but I don't really have any issues with this game. I think this game, for the most part, is good to amazing. There's very little things that I really had issue with. One of the only big issues that I say I personally have was just with its checkpoints. I think the checkpoints are in really rough spots sometimes, where if you die, you go really far back. And so that was like one thing that kind of got me annoyed a little bit. But luckily, the gameplay is so fun in this game that I don't mind playing through most of it. And so we are going to talk about the gameplay for a little bit. One of the biggest praises I will give this game is just what it does from a gameplay perspective. Of course, you do have the ability to switch between third and first person. Something a lot of games, most games, almost every game does not do. And I just love that feature, because that just explains Resident Evil as a franchise really, really well. If we do look at first person, I love how slow and just grounded and gritty that gameplay is, where you do have so much less ammunition, you have so much less resources, you do have to somewhat be stealthy through so much of Grace's segments, as well as when you shoot that gun, like, you really do not want to miss a shot. And that is like one of my favorite things about survival horror games, is, you know, the fact that you do have to pay attention to the resources that you have, item management, inventory management. That's one of my favorite parts, and they just do such a great job of this. There are things where you have to interact with like carts to push them to get over this certain obstacle, and they just do such a great job of just spreading that throughout and having a good variety of them. The puzzles, especially during the first half, I think were super fun and not like crazy, like impossible to solve where I had to look them up, but definitely challenging to a point where I thought about it. I'm like, should I just look this up? But absolutely not. I ended up finding out how to do it, and it's just super rewarding and pays off really, really well. They do have, you know, a lot of different systems in place, whether it is your little pocket knife, so it is kind of your escape mechanism if you do get caught by I don't even know what just infected. And so, yeah, I really do think that gameplay is really great. But also something else I love about just Requiem's gameplay overall is just how much variety and different it really takes it. When you play as Leon, they introduce whole new systems. You have whole new economies. You have tons of different. You basically have upgrades that you're able to do as Leon, and there is kind of a difference where, like, Leon, you have like currency in a sense, like points that you get from defeating enemies, but then as Grace, you have like blood. Like you can collect blood, and it's really weird. It's really weird, but it makes sense when you actually play the game, and it feels rewarding and it feels engaging, that I do want to upgrade this, I do want to move forward with this, I do want to progress, and I think that's really, really good. As Leon, we do see a lot of melee in this game, which I really enjoyed. I would love to see them like fully commit to like a melee Resident Evil. I think that'd be really, really interesting. But you do get his axe, which you are able to parry, which they don't do a lot with it, but, you know, I'm glad that it was included, just a little something to change it up every once in a while. You do get a whole variety of weapons, your classic pistol, shotgun, sniper, etc. I'm not going to spoil some of them. And yeah, I just really, really enjoy what this game does from a gameplay perspective. They went super deep, and they went so hard as you even have completely different inventory managements for both characters. You have a more like slot system for Grace, but then you have a like fit the tiles system for Leon. For those of you who have played Resident Evil games, you know what I'm talking about. I don't really have to explain it. For those of you who have never played it, you probably have no idea what I mean by tile system. But hey, you know what? Play the game, you'll completely understand. And guess what? I recommend you play this game. So don't worry about, oh, I'm not gonna play the game, so I'm gonna miss out. No, you should play the game 100%. I will say, in terms of gameplay, I think boss fights were one of the weaker parts, but luckily, like I said, it is made up by incredible set pieces and moments. There are moments where, not to spoil things specifically, but you are driving vehicles, you are using really awesome weapons, and they just do some really great things to make it feel like, oh, this is a memorable big moment within gameplay standpoints. And so I think they do a good job adding those in, even though there are some boss fights that aren't necessarily bad, but they just don't live up to what the rest of the game is. And I will say that has kind of been an issue with Resident Evil as a franchise as a whole, is the boss fights never really are anything special. But, you know, I wish they did, especially for how many awesome characters and moments are in this game. I mean, I'm telling you, there is some peak moments in this game. But one thing I will say for this game as a whole, as we kind of wrap up this review, is I think this is a perfect example of what a AAA game should look like, especially in 2026. I mean, if we look from where we started this review, from a technical standpoint, audio design, visuals, it just crushes it. If we are looking at this game from a $70 standpoint, I think the content and length of the game is enough. I think, you know, you could ask for more content, but I think for a Resident Evil game, especially survival horror game, I think this is a perfect length. I think this is a perfect amount of content. I wish we did have the Mercenaries mode. We're going to be getting DLC, so, you know, there is definitely more to be had there. But I also just think, you know, when we look at how deep the gameplay goes, when we look at how fun the story is, I think there's just everything you want out of a AAA game here. I think this is a great example. I think Capcom absolutely crushed it out of the park, really. And so I am going to be giving this game a 9 out of 10. This game solidified Resident Evil as one of my favorite franchises, further solidified survival horror as a top 3 genre. It makes you realize just how awesome Leon actually is, and delivers a terrifying experience that I haven't felt in years. Pacing, weak boss fights don't ruin what otherwise is an amazing example of why Resident Evil is so known for its level design, awesome action segments, iconic moments. This game is fun, exciting, scary, and tense. Everything you want from this series. Hopefully the next installment builds off what Requiem has done and makes a few more innovations. But for what Requiem is, man, it's absolutely amazing. I can't recommend this game enough. I absolutely love Capcom right now, and I love Resident Evil. I'm not even going to say love Capcom right now. I just love Capcom, period. Thank you all so much for watching. Leave a comment in the section down below provided what you thought of Resident Evil Requiem. We'd love to know. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe and follow us on all our socials. We appreciate all of your support, and we will see you in the next one. Johnnymmer out. Peace.